Go ahead, Gary.
I'm not going to say it's unreasonable. I would be opposed to having the bureaucracy be reimbursed for its process, and that would be administration. Tyler Palmer doing what he does in assessing potential damage to the roadway. We would do that, for virtually anything that came through. If somebody requests certain information, we try to meet that information. And at that point, you have people exercising their judgment as to whether or not, taking Tyler's case, you want to make sure that judgment is unbiased and so on and so forth. In the case of the police, where they're providing a certain public service for public safety, it's a little bit different. The tree trimming is on the cusp. Parks and Rec, our regulatory folks, went out and watched it being done, went along with the tree trimming company, watched the work that was being done. That's a little closer. I suspect you could get, or I would feel better about seeking reimbursement on that issue. I'm not sure it's a lot of money. Obviously, to us, the police services is the biggest impact to the general fund.
But it's certainly time.
Certainly.
Legal has spent a lot of time with
Absolutely.
this. I'm inclined to support a position where we look for reimbursement.
Just a matter of how.
Well, I'll take I like staff's recommendation on how.
Walter.
The tree commission did look at this, although it's been said they did not, and their comment was that pruning was beneficial, that the trees could use it. It preceded getting them limbs broken anyway, as we have chip trucks do when they're on other routes all the time anyway. So I'm probably not as prone, Tim, as you are to want to ask for payment for that. It was a partial day's work with a supervisor and maybe one other, so that one doesn't bother me too much. We've been told that the overtime in question wouldn't be necessary except for ExxonMobil's actions. I disagree. I think the overtime for the police is required by the protest of the people out there protesting, and I'll support their right to do that all day long and all night long. That's a First Amendment right, and they've got the right to do it. And if they are concerned that the police being the city being reimbursed for police overtime by the hauler, then they can certainly pass a hat out there, and I'd invite them to contribute to the city of Moscow for the overtime costs if they wish to do that. I'm certainly not saying we ought to be billing them. It's not where I'm going. I believe that we should work out a mechanism to be reimbursed for our hard cost of called-in people, including command staff. And furthermore, I believe that command staff should be paid for their time down here, called in to do that. They're leaving hearth, home, and children and whatever to come down and keep us in the city safe and protesters from being run over or whatever the case may be. So I do believe the command staff should be compensated, which I think I heard somebody say they aren't now, even though I think their time is in this document we've got from the chief.
If I can respond to that?
Go ahead.
If I may, let me finish here. We have other time as well because I've also asked about the fact that we're pulling regular patrols back off the other streets of Moscow. They're not out in my neighborhood or anybody else's neighborhood doing their regular work, just patrolling the streets while they're down here on Washington Street working these incidences. So I do feel that we should if we're going to get reimbursed, that time should be included, and my understanding is the chief has included that in his memo, that it looks at not only call-in overtime, but the time that assigned on-duty regular staff are told, be down here, we need you, that type of time. I would suggest that the counting of those times, the time, chief, and the amount of money determined to figure out how much it's costing us be done as we do for anybody else where we do special duty, whether it's Rendezvous or the U of I or whatever, and if we do it that way. I'm a little reluctant to say after the fact, we'll see if they would like to pay us. I think that's a little loosey-goosey, and when this thing is all said and done, except for Tim's recommendation, we do it on a per-night basis. When it's all said and done, then we tell them, well, here's your bill for $104,000, and they say, sorry, we don't have a contract. So I would like to see staff come up with some,
Non-binding contract.
or something.
I understand what you're saying.
So that we know what the deal is. I would like to do it retroactively, and I would like to do it for the future on these things, as long as they go on. My concern with a lot of this is the go-on part. I was delighted last Tuesday night to see a load move through town with some people on the street corners, but they just moved through. There was no extra police presence. The regular patrol came down, watched, and went back to whatever they were doing, as best I could tell. And I thought, we've kind of gotten past this. Apparently the next night was not the same way. We kind of got caught with not enough officers down there, in my opinion, possibly more protesters than we anticipated because of ISP's comments to the department, we don't think we need you. So, that's when I start getting concerned. I mean, all we need is one of these protesters to step off the curb and get run over, and then it's all our fault. So I just don't want that to happen. As I said, they have every right in the world to be out there waving their signs, yelling, whatever they want to do, but this is a permitted load, to my understanding, by the state of Idaho. It's a state highway, federal highway with state jurisdiction, and commerce is allowed to move. And that's what apparently we're being asked to help ISP ensure. You had a question, Gary?
Yeah, my comment about command staff is something that I have not discussed with Chief Duke. I'm not saying that the city should not be reimbursed for that. However, that's a personnel issue that we need to deal with. We typically do not compensate exempt employees in a different manner, so we'll have to have that discussion. We do have agreements with the University of Idaho where that is interpreted a little differently in their contracts. So we'll bring that up.
Would it be better, maybe not satisfactory to you, but better to explain my position to say that we compensate in the fashion that that the U of I does when we were called out there, when you've got command staff called out, and whatever happens with that is
I guess I'd prefer
what
that
should
you
be
leave
done
the
here?
discretion up to administration to.
I'd rather not.
Because we have 135 employees, 136 employees, and I think the mayor points out in her memo, and it is, you have certain of those employees who can be paid extra and certain of those employees who cannot. And as you're managing different classes of employees, you have to make sure that you're fair across the board. And we have personnel policies to deal with that.
Let me finish my thought, and then you can. If command staff, when command staff rolled out, I'm sure, on the recent homicide that we had in town, and if they are not, per policy, paid overtime for that, then I don't have any problem with that. These loads are scheduled events. They are recurring. They are not, and oh my gosh, look what just happened, Chief, grab your shirt, gun, and badge and get out the door. It's something that we are being faced with on a regular, recurring basis, and that's where I'm coming from, Gary, as opposed to the difference with a student riot, an emergency, a building burning down, we need more help, all of that kind of stuff. That is in the line of duty, and whatever your policies are, I'm sure I don't have any problem with them. But on this, I think that they should be paid because it is a recurring situation. Go ahead.
Maybe I'm not picking up what you're putting down there. What I'm hearing is getting reimbursed for their time, the city being reimbursed for command staff's time. Are you saying also paying the command staff?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And from my opinion.
In your opinion. Okay.
If I may point out, those personnel policies are the city council's personnel policies. They are not mine.
Well, okay.
Sure, I understand what
possible
you're saying.
misstatement, but I'm suggesting
I
they
understand
be modified in this case.
I understand what you're saying. And certainly that would be taken up. And all I'm saying is let's follow the policy, but I'm not opposed to anything. from what your direction is.
Walter, it sounds like you want a contract.
I would like some assurance that we can get paid.
Yeah,
Right.
my question would be, can we, if this goes through the council, the reimbursement aspects of it, would you be willing to try the billing process or reimbursement process, and then if that's not going to cut the mustard, go to a contract or attempt to negotiate a contract?
Well, then you're dealing after the fact with all these days
We're already
and dollars
after the fact.
after the fact again. And if they're going to pay, they're going to pay. And if they're not, they may not want a contract to pay. I don't know.
That's my point.
I guess I am saying I would like to see some agreement. Who with, I'm not sure.
That's where I'm thinking is,
I understand the perception of contracting with the hauler to provide what we consider to be security and which other people might say is the assistance in moving their load. I understand that. But on the other hand, we're being put under this burden of cost on this. And I think that that we should, this as a city and the taxpayers, reimbursed for it.
Yeah, I felt the same way about the admin costs.